Hey, it is good to see you guys tonight. Thanks for letting me crash this. This was my idea yesterday, just as I was thinking through the message from this past weekend, and then also in preparation for where we are headed this coming Sunday. I just felt like there was so much that did not get talked about. As we talked about this topic, I realized that in a message like I did on Sunday, you have the opportunity to kind of just throw out some concepts. And I realized that there's a lot about, well, what about this? Or what about this situation? Or that kind of thing. And so we want to put together this resource just to kind of help you, but also be able to help other people to kind of navigate what does this actually look like in real life? How do we actually live out this whole idea that Song of Solomon introduces us, which is basically this entire journey of who am I supposed to be attracted to? Who am I supposed to date? How do I date? What does it look like to pursue marriage? What does it look like then to ultimately have the wedding night, have sex? What does that look like in our relationship as we move forward as a married couple? What does it look like for conflict? All of those things. But tonight we want to talk specifically about dating and relationships. So we've got a panel with some star-studded folks up here. Let's give them a hand. Celebrate the folks here. I'll let you guys introduce yourself. Lily, you start and tell us a little bit, not only obviously who you are, everybody knows who you are, but maybe some don't. But then tell us how you guys met. How long you been married, how you met.
All right, my name's Lily. This is my husband, Josh. We got married October of last year. Oh, 2 years ago. Sorry. It feels like yesterday. So this October will be our 2-year anniversary. We both work at the church, and that's actually where we met. We met working here, became friends, and then we did what every pastor stresses about, which is we started dating as 2 staff members. But it worked out. So now we're married, and we're doing great.
Me? Okay. Hi, I'm Hallie. Obviously, I'm married to Garrett. I don't work at the church, which is not like anyone else up here, but Garrett and I actually met at church, so that counts for something. We grew up in this church, actually. In the youth building over there is where we met, and then I guess it was the summer of going into my senior year, his junior year is when things kind of, I was like, oh, maybe we should date or something. He's really cute and he loves the Lord. And so we started dating in 2019 and we got married December 28th of 2024. So just over a year. Quite a wedding, yeah, exactly. It was something.
If no one tells you that camp love isn't a thing, it's a thing. Because we met at camp, we played knockout for basketball and she beat me almost every time. But joke's on her, we ended up getting married. So now we're here. She's the best. So
Very cool. All right, here's the first question I want to ask you guys. Here's what we're going to do. We hopefully you submitted some questions as well. We have some of those that you submitted even before you came. But then if you want to submit some tonight, I think there's a QR code or something that was up there earlier. But one of the things that is confusing to me whenever I talk to y'all is just how many steps there are in the dating culture today. Like, it's just crazy. There's no longer just seemingly the basic stuff. When you think about dating culture right now, what would you say is the status of how things are going? Like, give us some insights. What are your thoughts about dating culture right now?
I think a big part of it is a lot of people, generally speaking, of course, date for attention rather than intention. And what I mean by that is, like, a lot of people date for attention in the sense of, like, they just want to be known and loved, which is great. And that's what's needed. But it makes it all about you. So it's more of like, what can I get rather than what can I actually give someone else? So I think our minds have flipped to be a little bit selfish in a lot of ways. So I think that's just one part about our culture right now in dating specifically. It's all about us. It's not about the other person. I think it confuses things.
Anybody else want to jump in?
I mean, it's hard dating right now. You know, I'm thankful that I'm like married, and I don't say that as a look at us. It's more like we were talking about it earlier. Like, I feel for y'all. Like, the idea of going out. Well, finding somewhere to go where there are decent people and then putting yourself out there to talk to somebody and then doing the whole deal, you know, getting 10 months in and then realizing this isn't going to work and you got to start all over again. I'm like, ooh, I am praying for you. Like, that's a lot. It's harder to date in today's world too, you know? And so I would say, if you ask me what the pulse is, I'm like, oof, it's probably a definition I would use, you know?
I like kind of playing off what Garrett said. It's very like selfish. How can I feel good? And we're in the midst of hookup culture where that's kind of what it's all about. So playing off what Josh said, it's almost impossible to find someone with good quality and high standards and good expectations out of a relationship instead of just someone who's looking for a good time and nothing that's lasting. So
I also feel like the dating culture right now is rooted in a lot of fear. Like a lot of people that are single are fearful that they're not going to find someone, so they're trying to jump into whatever they can see first. And the people that are in relationships are fearful that they're not going to make it, or they're fearful of other things. And so it's just, there's a lot of fear, and that's what's making a lot of choices, which isn't great.
Okay, what's the worst reason that you've heard that someone gave for starting to date?
So not starting to date, but it was a young girl, not here, but young girl. It's not that she started dating this guy because of anything, but his dog died, and she knew that she didn't like him anymore. But so he didn't have to go through 2 losses. She stayed with him for like another 1 to 2 months. She was like, I can't do it. She's like, he's already lost one friend. I can't break up with him. And for 2 months, we were like, girl, just break up with this boy. And she was like, no, like, I don't want to hurt his feelings. And ultimately, like, they broke up, and it was horrible. But I mean, she was just like, I'm not going to do it because his dog died. And I don't want to be the second person in his life that dies. So.
Okay, wow. So there's the key. If you want to stay with somebody, just have your dog die, and then you're going to be able to drag it out a little bit longer.
When I was in high school and college, I had friends who would, or even just people I knew, who would start to date somebody because they would sleep with them, and they'd be like, well, like, we're good in bed together, so maybe we have something outside of that. And it always ended horribly. And it's just, I've never understood that perspective, but that's just like a wild reason to start dating someone, in my opinion.
We're going to talk a lot about that this Sunday, in fact, that whole idea. Okay, Garrett, this is one of the things we're also going to talk about Sunday. Help us on this. Why do you think guys hesitate so much to like initiate or define things? And I'm not, and maybe I'm wrong. I don't know if it may just be guys, but it seems like I hear about that a lot, where it's basically guys are unclear on what's happening right now.
I think a big part of it is they just don't have a sense of direction. They don't know what their goal is. So whenever they think about dating, if there's no goal in front of them, then it's hard for them to move forward when they're trying to find somebody. So I think just a sense of direction, not knowing exactly what they're looking for or how to do it. I think a big part of it is just people aren't really taught how to date. So like when they're trying to date, they want to initiate and they might have good intentions to date, but they just have never been taught it, so they don't know how to do it. And they're just following the rest of the culture, which obviously ends pretty badly every time.
Okay, I'm guessing this isn't just a guy thing. So, Hallie, you speak to this. Like, what does it look like for women to be kind of unclear or fuzzy when it comes to this whole dating thing and the clarity? It feels like clarity is your friend, but it doesn't feel like clarity is something that often gets given. Speak to that, would you?
I just think it, obviously, like you were saying, makes everything confusing because as much it is on the guy to lead the relationship and kind of know where it's going, it's as much on the girl to be like, these are my goals, these are my expectations, this is what I want out of this. And when you don't give that, it's just, you're both stuck in this, what are we doing, where are we going, and why are we doing this? And then it's just a bunch of question marks, like we don't know what's happening and everything's fuzzy, and yeah, you have like no clarity on anything at all.
Yeah, it's good. Okay, so this is interesting since y'all met here at the church, and then obviously you're hanging out. Walk us through like how the line was crossed to where all of a sudden like, okay, we're not just friends, work friends, but like, what was there a conversation that initiated that? Like, walk us through what that looks like.
I would say the biggest thing that we talk about a lot is that we both enjoy being single. Like we weren't really looking like if most of you guys may not know me at this point, but when I moved here, my plan was to just be like single for a long time. And then this pretty girl just stole my heart. And so I was like, all right, well, everything's going to take a detour. But I would say that we started off as great friends. At one point, it was just me, Lily, and a few other single young adults on the staff. We just spent a lot of time together, and we just became really, really good friends. And I actually had these non-negotiables. I'm 0 for 3 on all of them. I was like, I'm not going to date somebody that I work with. I'm not going to date somebody that goes to the young adult ministry. She was like one of the first. And I was like, my wife would probably be somebody that isn't at United City. It'll probably be somebody that comes from or comes from somewhere else as a guest if we date. I'm 0 for 3 in that. And so I struck out horribly, but I feel like I won in the end. But the whole idea that we talked about was, and babe, I'd love for you to pick up here in just a second, was like, hey, I feel like we're more than friends. I feel like we can explore that opportunity, but I want to make sure that we do that in the context of health, because we also work here, and the aim that we both have in this point is to create space for people to encounter Jesus, and not to create space to serve one another at that point. But
Yeah, Josh very clearly asked me to go to lunch with him, which I was oblivious to what was happening. But at this lunch together, he kind of just expressed how he was feeling, how we're great friends. We've had a great time together. Like, we love spending time together, and how he wanted to maybe explore something more, and then gave me kind of like a vision for what that would look like, or why he wanted to do that. And I would say that gave me a lot of clarity, just because I knew exactly what he wanted. And so it helped me. Of course, we had to process that in the moment. Okay, what does this look like? Obviously, we're both on staff, so what's that going to look like? How are we going to do this? All these types of things. But he was very clear and initiated that. And so that helped me to feel more confident in what we were doing, just because he initiated.
It's really good. Let's talk about expectations, because that is a big thing for sure, and it's definitely something that can cause a lot of conflict, especially when you don't communicate them, because everybody has them. The key is whether you communicate them. Hal, let me start with you. Where do unspoken expectations show up most in dating?
They show up everywhere. I had to learn this quickly, that Garrett's not a mind reader, and neither am I. I thought he was. Clearly he isn't. I really learned that fast. But unspoken expectations is just like, it shows up in what your boundaries are and the effort you're going to put into this and where we're going, like I touched on earlier. So what is obvious to me and what I think we're getting out of this, or what I'm going to put into it, might not be the same thing Garrett was thinking at the time, or what the person you're talking to might be thinking as well. And so when you don't lay those out clearly, then once again, you're back into the pool of, I'm confused and I don't know what's happening and I don't know what we want to get out of this.
So you guys obviously started dating when you were younger. So walk us through how you've grown and learned. Garrett, you speak to this. How have you grown and learned how to communicate your expectations? Because you guys also have a pretty interesting story, because you were really apart for a ton of your relationship, right? So what does communication even look like from a long distance setting, and being able to make sure that you're communicating well?
For sure. So a huge part of our story, really. We obviously started dating my junior year, her senior year. She went off to college a year before I did, so we were already 1 year apart. Then I went to college in another state. So we were apart for 4 more years from that point, so 5 years total. I always get this wrong. 5 years total that we were long distance relationship. So we had to learn, and we had to learn quick. And I think when it comes to expectations, we had to set them at the start, because the longer that we would wait, the harder that it was to kind of bring those things back up. So we set an expectation to be like, hey, we're going to FaceTime most nights because we have to check in with each other. So we had a lot of different expectations that we kind of knew at the beginning, but then most I should say, that we learned along the way because we did it wrong. So then we had to learn how to correct those things for the future.
Yeah. Josh, let me speak to you guys. I know part of your story is that communication did not go well, and it led to some conflict that ultimately God obviously used in part of your story. But as you look back, what do you wish you could have done different as you think about that? Tell us about the situation, and then tell us specifically, how do you wish, looking back, you could have done it differently in terms of how you communicate to each other in the dating stage?
So the situation that he's referring to, we went on this date and Josh had communicated to me that he wanted to talk about the future and what that looked like. So I was very excited thinking, oh my goodness, we're going to talk about marriage, engagement, all these things. And on this date, he ends up just like throwing daggers at me, just saying all these things that were not very kind and just kind of like calling out a lot of qualities in me that he didn't really like. It's okay. God redeemed it. But but it was just because he was going through a lot of things and needed to process them with me about our relationship, but didn't know how to communicate them. So he did it in the only way he knew how at the moment, which wasn't great. So of course, I was very confused, hurt, just because I had a different idea of what was about to happen. And looking back, I mean, it ended up great. We ended up actually talking later, and actually getting to the root of what was going on. And I wish we would have started with that first. Like, I wish so badly that instead of him feeling like he needed to isolate and figure out how to come up with all these things to say, or what's the right thing to say, what do I even need to say, I wish we would have just communicated to each other and actually had that conversation initially, because it would have saved us a lot of pain.
Yeah, I'm still sorry about that, boo. I'm still sorry about that. I would say the first thing I wish I would have done is that I wish I would have went to an older mentor to process these thoughts with before talking to Lily Grace. I think that was probably my biggest mistake, because the truth is sometimes you do have thoughts, and it's probably not a good idea for you to just take those thoughts and go to the person you care about the most and tell that person everything that you're thinking, because sometimes it's better to protect them from some of those internal thoughts that you have, because it's probably going to harm them. So that's the first thing I would do. The second thing is, I think a lot of times in relationships, we think that the person that we love receives love and communication the way that we grew up receiving love and communication. And so for me, whenever there was a tension or a problem that we needed to work through, my family was very direct, very blunt, very on the nose about it. And that's why I received it. And I didn't think anything about it. I was like, okay, well, that hurt, but at least there's a growth point. That's not the way that my girl was raised at all. And I think because I didn't have a sensitivity to that, and because I didn't listen to her early on, I think I stepped into that just yapping, honestly, when I shouldn't have. And I think so I would say those are the two things that I probably would go back and do. Just be more sensitive to how she receives stuff, and probably not tell her 99% of the stuff I said either, is what I would say.
Okay, this is really good though, because I think one of the things you don't want to do is just avoid having hard conversations. Because I would say this, I kind of alluded to it Sunday, if you think you found the perfect person and you guys haven't had a fight, you have not found the right person. I'm just telling you right now, you don't know each other. You don't know each other at all. Because part of the process of dating is to see them at their worst, is to have those conversations. So you don't want to necessarily not poke the bear. So anybody can jump in on this. How do you bring up things without scaring somebody off? Because I don't want it to just be personality. Like I'm kind of like, I'm an Enneagram 8. Like I love conflict. Like I have no problems with it whatsoever. And so therefore, my wife's an Enneagram 9. Like she lives to avoid conflict. So I could easily just run over my wife very easily, and she just take it because she just wants it to end as quick as possible, and nobody's better off as a result of it. So you can't avoid it. How do you engage without blowing the whole thing up?
I think a big thing, and Josh, you talked about this before, just having some trusted friends who give good advice and wise counsel. I feel like I didn't really do that a ton, because usually I'll let emotion run the conversation. I would say something, I would regret it. Instead of just going to people and like, hey, like me and Hallie are fighting about these things. I'm thinking this, she's thinking this, but how can I talk to her in the most loving way and gentle way possible in order to kind of handle this? Because fighting can be healthy. So how to handle this conflict. So I think just having some other people around me who are trusted and good friends and who are friends with both of us as well, who have from both perspectives, is something that I feel like I could have used a lot more.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I know for us, Garrett would like push down a lot of things he was feeling and not bring up some of those hard conversations to have. One time, he literally like had bottled them up so much that he just like unraveled one night and tried to break up with me like out of thin air. And I was like, what is happening? Like, I was so confused, but I like later realized like he was feeling all these things and experiencing all these things that he just wasn't communicating to me. And so that's kind of when we were like, okay, we need people in our life outside of just me to talk to and to get wise counsel from and to help us with how to talk about things that might be hard or scary or weird. Because when you bottle them up, it'll eventually, I feel like you'll just explode and blow up on somebody.
It's so good. I would say it gets back to the definition of what dating is, which is evaluation. So I think if you start the conversation with, yo, you're getting to know me, I'm getting to know you, which means that I'm probably going to observe stuff that you do, and you're going to observe stuff that I do. We got to be able to have some sort of neutral ground to come back to this and talk about it. If I see something weird, it's not attacking. What I've realized is that conversations go a lot farther if you phrase them as questions, not as accusatory assumptions. So, hey, I see this in you. Can you tell me why you do that? Not attacking, not aggressive, but just like, hey, I noticed that you do this. Why? I'm curious, right? Because all it is evaluation. All you're trying to do is to figure out, is this somebody that I'm compatible with? Ben Stewart says it best. Like, one of the best things he's ever said is you need a breakup plan. Like, before you start dating, you need a breakup plan. Like, how are we gonna like end this? Like all that kind of stuff. So as you have checkpoints throughout and you evaluate and you have those hard conversations, you've already got a framework in place that just kind of gives you and that person an out if needed. Like that's not like a fail safe, but I do think it helps whenever you get to those hard conversations if you just identify that stuff up front.
I would also say just don't hold anything back. Like, actually say what you want to say. Don't tiptoe around things. Like, just be direct. Just because one thing that we struggled with a lot was we would have hard conversations, but we wouldn't actually resolve the issue, because if one of us felt resolved and the other did not, then like one of us would just leave it and go along with it, when really we still weren't like resolved, or that wasn't actually healed. So then later on it would blow up into something even bigger. And I remember you actually pointed this out to us, PC, in our marriage counseling. You literally looked at us and you're like, you guys just need to fight more. And like, when you actually fight, like actually say what you mean, because you're not getting anywhere, you're holding back. And I remember like a few weeks after that, we had a really big argument, and it was our biggest fight we'd ever had. But afterwards, we felt so much peace and so good, because we had actually communicated with each other and actually got somewhere, rather than just like tiptoeing and being afraid to hurt the other person. Because newsflash, if you're in a relationship, you're gonna hurt each other. So just knowing that and remembering that you're on the same team and tackling the problem as a team, rather than this is your problem and you need to fix it. It's, hey, this is an us problem. How are we gonna tackle this together?
One more thing on that. I think the culture has defined care in the wrong way, where we say, hey, I'm not going to bring up these hard things because I care about you and I don't want to hurt you. But honestly, the best thing you can do in that moment is to bring up those hard things, because that is the caring and loving thing to do. I think the culture would say, no, don't rock the boat. Don't say that because it's going to hurt their feelings. It's going to offend them. When honestly, like, what does 1 Corinthians say? Like, love rejoices in the truth. Like, it rejoices when the truth comes to light. And so I think for us, we just have to realize, like, man, we gotta actually talk about this, and just know that, like, we have the trust and the underbed of love and honor with one another, that we can have those harder conversations and know that we still in this together. And so,
it's the scripture is really clear. It says love keeps no record of wrong. And the reason that it says that is because whenever you do, what easily ends up happening is you're stewing on that thing, and especially if you're not bringing it up, all you're doing is rehearsing and reacting it in your mind and figuring out how right you are and how wrong they are. And you're never going to convince yourself that's not the case. What I've instead discovered is that there's two sinners getting together in this thing. Like, you can't avoid that. You got two sinners, both flawed, both doing this. And instead of me being the guy that God has given as the Holy Spirit to point out everything wrong in my wife's life, what I've instead discovered is that actually, because I'm around her so often and spend so much time with her, it's like she's wearing a mirror and I actually get to see how bad I am. And it is a very, very tough thing to do. So yes, bring stuff up, but also the scripture is so clear, James 1, be slow to speak, quick to listen, slow to become angry, right? It's trying to say, like, just God has not given you the gift of making sure to point out all their flaws. He did not want you to date them just so that you can fix them. But he probably does want you to learn a lot from this. How to be patient, how to forgive, how to implement so many of the things that the scripture says that we're supposed to do. Let's transition a little bit. I want us to talk about some of the questions both that y'all submitted before, as well as some of the questions that you submitted even tonight. Is it wise, anybody can jump in on this one. Is it wise to date someone who believes in God but doesn't follow him?
No.
That's a perfect answer. I mean,
Yeah, we can expound, but
honestly, like,
no.
I don't even know what else to say. I mean, that is a good answer. Like,
Well, the devil claims to know God, but he doesn't, or like he believes in God, but he doesn't like know God or have a relationship with him. So why would you risk getting to like a covenant, an intimate, personal relationship with someone who doesn't know the Lord in that way? Like that is honestly like one of the scariest things I can think of to do. I wouldn't recommend it.
And it goes back to the illustration on Sunday. You need to be running hard after Jesus. And so if somebody else claims to be running hard after Jesus, but they're not to your right or to your left, then you don't need to be waiting on them to catch up to you. Because in order for you to wait for them to catch up with you, you're going to have to stop running in order to wait for them. So therefore, I would tell you, no, it doesn't mean they're a bad person. We talked about the illustration where, remember, Brian was over here and he was walking. It doesn't mean that you're a bad if you are in that place where you're, growing and beginning your relationship with the Lord. But it also doesn't mean you need to be dating the person that's running hard after Jesus. It's just, you can be friends, you shouldn't date. That'd be my deal. How long should I wait for someone to actually change? Can I answer this one?
Yeah.
Okay. The question needs another disclaimer. To be friends or to date? Those are two different answers. You can be a great friend to someone and wait for them to change or to get it or to change this bad habit or overcome this addiction or whatever. But that doesn't mean you should date them in the process. And I think that's a big, big thing. And maybe you're asking this because maybe you've noticed something in someone and you're pointing out some things, you're addressing some of this conflict, and then they're not making those changes. It goes back to the illustration. Are they running with Jesus with you? If not, if the purpose of dating is marriage, what you don't want to do is be dating someone for so long that then you look up and you're still waiting for them to change. And I can't tell you how many times you begin to all of a sudden lower the bar. You marry that person and you're going to spend the majority of your marriage praying for him, not with him. You can flip the illustration around in terms of a guy or a girl. So I would tell you, what are you doing? I don't know if it's about a time frame as much as it is a mindset. If I'm dating for marriage, they're not changing on this thing that's very important to me, which again, that goes back towards mentors. Should this be important to you? My experience mainly is too many, speaking to women specifically, not enough stuff is as important to you as it should be. I think instead you're allowing way too much to just be okay. And maybe it's just because, I don't feel like there's a lot of other options. I would simply tell you this: singleness is not a disease. So marriage is not the cure. So if you're dating for the purpose of marriage, don't date if you don't want to end up hopefully marrying that person. And if you realize that that's not something that you should do, then I would tell you to back out now. All right. What do healthy boundaries look like in dating?
So funny story, Gary and I were talking about this. So this was one of the first times. So I stayed with Cody Cooper when I first moved to Houston, and Lily Grace was coming over one night. This was one of the first times she was coming to the house, and I think she knows what I'm about to say. But she walked in, I had cooked all this kind of stuff. Like, we sit on the couch, and the first thing I said, I was like, "Hey, just so you know, we're not having sex tonight." I just said it. I was like, "Just so you know, we're not having sex tonight, and you're leaving at 10:30. Like, that's it." And I told her, and it was so funny in the moment. And she was like, "Whoa!" And I was even like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I just said that. Like, that sounded so much better when I rehearsed it in my mind, right?" But as we have talked about that night, she actually told me, she was like, "Josh, I actually appreciated that because it honestly allowed me to drop my shoulders." Now, I worked at the church. I love the church. I pursue impurity, all that kind of stuff. But I think if you just get it out early and often, That's the best way to do it. Like if you just say, yo, I'm not doing this. And then you tell your boys or you tell your girls, Sheldon, where are you? That man has gotten the amount of text messages that man has gotten when I'm like, hey, Lily's coming over tonight, check back with me at this time, make sure that I'm putting my phone down, make sure I'm going to bed. Like the amount of text messages that he's gotten and vice versa, right? You gotta have accountability in that. You gotta like just say it early and often and be direct. Don't beat around the bush. You say it all the time. Sunday morning is a Saturday night decision. Same thing is true when it comes to dating. If that girl coming over to the house, you got to have a game plan in place before she get there. Because if not, you cooked.
Yep. Sure.
I think it's like important to like not flirt with the boundaries, because once you start flirting with the boundary and just crossing this little line, you don't think it's that bad. It just leads to destruction, and it just leads to something and somewhere you don't want to be. So if like you and your partner say you don't need to be in the car alone, or you don't need to be in your room, like stay away from places that could lead you down a road you don't want to go, or hang out in groups. Like I think it's important to put in place like together with your partner and be like, we're not going to do this. We're not going to be here. We're not going to be alone doing these things, because when you do that, then you're just not flirting at all with being in a place you don't want to be. Not that it's easy, but
I think also to add on to that, sometimes, and I'm sure y'all have heard this before, is like a lot of the times we think, how close can I get to the line? When what we should really think is, how far can I get away from it? Like, we all need to have this, and we talked about it a few weeks ago. It's like when we put on the armor of God, this breastplate of righteousness, it's a righteousness that's been given to us, but it's also a righteousness that we live out. Like when we're made holy, we've been made right with God, but there's also this practical holiness that we have to live out. We have to. It's a command that the Lord gives us. So it's not how close can I get before I sin, but instead, how far can I get away and how pure can I be in every single way? So having those people, what was good for us is Hallie has a twin. So anytime that I would be in the apartment, Haley would be in there as well. So there's automatic accountability. But in the same sense, it's like, yeah, like we don't want to be in a car alone, parked in the middle of nowhere. Like we need to set these boundaries early and often in any sort of way. Because guess what? We're sinners, and all of us are going to drift towards sin no matter how good we think that we are.
Yeah.
I mean, Romans, sorry, go baby.
I would also say that I feel like culture today views boundaries in Christian relationships specifically as very restrictive and embarrassing. And I would just say, don't listen to what the culture says, because boundaries are created to protect you and to bring you closer to each other and closer to God and help you to honor Him. So don't be embarrassed of your boundaries. There's going to be people who judge you, who say certain things. Trust me, I went through that. I have friends who are not Christian. When I would tell them about our boundaries and things, they'd be like, well, what? Like, it's just this. And you have to stand your ground and just know, hey, these are here to protect me. I'm not going to listen to what the world says. I'm going to remember, hey, these are here to protect us and to help us to honor God together.
I always view it like let's just say you're standing on a roof, a sloped roof, okay? And purity and boundaries are not a line, that it's a direction. Meaning this, if the end of the roof, if I'm at the top of the pitched roof and the end of the roof is the line, and I try to get as close as I can to that, the momentum of heading down, I'm going to fall over the line.
Yeah.
But instead, if I view purity as a direction, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the decision to not go too close to that line long before, because I can just see the slope. So I think you guys, you said it early, have the conversation early, like really quickly. I think, hey, this is FYI, this is what I'm comfortable with. And have that conversation right away. And it may be awkward, but guess what? It is way better to be awkward and keep your purity than it is for you to not be awkward and instead find yourself in a compromising situation that you said you'd never be in. Now, let's talk about this. I think this is just as important. How do you recover if the boundaries are crossed? And let me speak to this if I can. I think it's important that you don't just back up the boundaries one step. That's not going to work. I think instead, you either need to break off the relationship or you need to go way back, 15 steps back, because you've proven that you can't handle that, which, by the way, is okay. It's okay if you admit that. But I think instead, we just assume that, we just won't slip up next time. That doesn't work. That's not how this whole thing works, because you have two sinners who, at the end of the day, have God-given desires which are from the Lord. They're not bad. They're actually a gift from him. However, just like a fire can provide great warmth and beauty, if it's outside of the fireplace, it can also destroy cities and areas. So you've got to make sure that you put it in its proper container. And what I found is that just backing off one step is not realistic. That being said, you're like, well, can we stay together if we've done this? I would say this: if you keep doing it, no. Like, I think at that point you're just lying to yourself. So instead, I think this is where honesty and clarity is key. But it's vitally important. I think the purity culture was helpful. I also think the purity culture caused a lot of damage because it also made everything weird. You don't need to be weird, but I also would tell you this: it's way better to be weird and have purity again than I think it is to do what the culture's doing, which just doesn't work. Any of y'all want to speak into that? How do you recover if boundaries are crossed?
I mean, this is the importance of being in community. Yep. And just let me honor Garrett, bro. What you have done with the young adult ministry as it pertains to groups, bro, it is amazing. Like, your pastor has made it so easy. It's going to be harder for you to run from a group than to run to a group because of what Garrett has done. This is where community comes in play big time. Because what the enemy's going to tell you to do is to hide, cover it up, and don't talk about it ever again. And the shame cycle that a lot of therapists have been saying is that whenever you live in that shame, all it does is drive you to do it again, right? And so once you bring it to the light and you actually get it in front of people and you confess it, you talk about it, at that point, I think you set some really hard boundaries in place. And if you can't, you let other people do it for you, and then you allow them to hold you accountable to it.
That's good. Is finding a soulmate biblical? Or does God provide us options for us to choose from? Does finding the one even exist?
There are many.
I want to answer this so bad. I've said this in multiple marriage counseling, and I would say it if my wife is here. She is not my soulmate. We're going to be married 24 years here in June, 25 next year. She's not my soulmate. At the end of the day, if something, God forbid, ever happened to my wife, like, God could have somebody else that's there. We aren't offended. She was here. We've done this many times before. Neither one of us would be offended by that reality. I think instead, I tell this to my kids all the time, all right? They need to be, if you're a guy, they need to be a girl, and they need to love Jesus, okay? That's it. Like we talked about it Sunday, whenever you're looking at if you're running towards Jesus and you got two people, one in front, one behind you, at the end of the day, both could be good options. You don't have to go get weird about it as to whether I'm finding the one. I think that's a misnomer from Hallmark movies, that instead we need to just recognize is that, look, we put way too much pressure on that. They need to run hard after Jesus, and they need to be of the opposite sex. That's the criteria. Like, and obviously attraction and all of that kind of stuff is secondary, but don't buy into that lie, because I think sometimes we just get in our heads and we overthink it. Is that all right? It's all right. This is a good one. How should we navigate physical preferences in dating? Like when someone is godly and aligns with your values, but doesn't match what you're typically attracted to.
I'll start. I would say, also, I'm not speaking from experience here, but I am speaking from wisdom. I would say, don't let that be the thing that stops you, just because chemistry is important, attraction is important, but that's not what sustains a relationship. That will fade over time and fluctuate throughout your relationship, your marriage, all sorts of things. So I think if that's the only thing that's not necessarily there at first, don't let that be a stopping point, just because you never know, like God could bring that attraction to you later. So I also think we have a lot of preferences and we want a lot of things. We want our significant others to look a certain way, to be a certain way. It's more than even just looks too. It's just like preferences with their personalities, things like that. And I would just say, don't put someone in a box. Like if they are running hard after Jesus and you spend time with them and you enjoy it, like don't be afraid to try. And if it doesn't come, that's okay, but don't let that be something that stops you, because chemistry doesn't sustain you.
Hillary and I joke, we say that we've both been married to 3 different people because we've both changed over the course of our married life. And that isn't bad. That's been awesome. It's been an incredible ability to be able to like have that and learn new things about her. I'm still learning new things about her. She's doing the same thing about me. You can easily make those things become annoyances because you feel like you were misled. But instead, if you realize this is a living, dynamic dance that you're going to be on for a very long time. So therefore, if you're not attracted to him, that's fine. You don't have to date him. But on the other hand, don't overthink that. If there's somebody who loves Jesus, has great character, has a good reputation, I would tell you this, they're going to learn to be very attractive, while the people you may find very attractive that don't have those things, I promise you, are going to lead you down a totally different road. And so instead, just know that just none of you are going to look as good as you look right now in 20 years. I'm just telling you that right now, okay? It's just reality, all right? So just FYI, you know.
PC, if I may.
Please.
Whenever the Bible talks about an attractive woman outside of Song of Solomon, it often talks about the attractiveness of her character, not her physical appearance, right? Even in Titus, it says older women should be reverent in their behavior, that they may teach the young women to love their husbands. And in some translations, it says that they should be like the beauty that was adorned by the older women in the Old Testament. It wasn't marked by physical beauty. It was marked by the way that they served their husband, by the way that they served their God, by the way that they were a mom. And so I would say that, and I think you said it on Sunday, it's the inner beauty that actually complements the outward beauty. Because that inner beauty, it ain't fading, ever. And if anything, it grows stronger because you do get to see your significant other in many different seasons, and their character just continues to shine through.
Here's one as a woman. How do I protect my heart while dating?
You need to spend time with the Lord. Proverbs 4:23, above all else, guard your heart. For everything else you do flows from it. Both, obviously from a girl's perspective, but also with guys. You have to spend time with the Lord. You have to. There's no shortcut. There's no way around it. The best way that you can protect your relationship is the way that you spend time with the Lord. Every time. Every time.
The only things I can think of are things we've already talked about, like have boundaries, be clear, all those sorts of things, but there's not really like a special way. I would agree with what you said, Garrett, like having that relationship with the Lord, but also having community and knowing that the person you're with isn't the only person in your life. Like you have friends, family, all other people. Like don't get obsessed with the person you're with and don't idolize them. Because once you start to idolize them, then you just lose the whole point. So that's what I would say.
Let me ask this question then. It was asked that I think goes along with that. How do you honor your relationship without isolating yourself? Because I would tell you one of the ways that you ladies can definitely have your heart broken pretty bad is if you totally isolate yourself and that becomes your entire identity. And that's not a healthy thing either. So I would tell you, I think it's very important while you're dating to also have godly friends. We talked about this on Sunday. The girl went out and then she came home and the girlfriends talked 33% of the time in the book. So she had friends still. It wasn't like she left all of her friends in order to go be with this guy. And if a guy's ever pressuring you towards that, one, I think that's a problem. Same thing. Guys, if you don't have the Sheldons in your life that you're texting, hey, I'm going to be with her, that's a red flag right away. Like that's something you got to make sure that this is why biblical community actually matters, because what you want, I'm going to talk about it Sunday. What you want is to be at a place whenever you're standing on your wedding day, you got a whole line of groomsmen and a whole line of bridesmaids who have all been there the whole time shaping your character, who on that wedding day are cheering you on big time because they've walked with you the whole time. And so they're like, man, I've watched the ups and I've watched the downs and we're for this. The wedding day is a massive celebration. And it's also because the other people get to be involved in it as well, who've walked along in the journey. So I would just strongly encourage you, don't isolate yourself. That's a red flag. But instead, allow there to be a situation to where, and it's tough trying to navigate, how How do I hang out with your friends while also hanging out and give time to each other? But it needs to be intention. It never needs to be out of balance one or the other in one direction.
That's so good. And I mean, I've seen it. You're going to see it, right? But what I've seen so much is that a guy will get a girl will get a guy, and they will disappear. And you won't hear from them. You won't see them. They'll stop coming to church, a whole deal. The second they break up, he wants his boys. The second they break up, she wants her girls. And now, instead of them able to just care for her in the process of all of it, they got to be freaking detectives. Like, well, what happened? How long have you been dating? What happened? And they're having to retro the last 7 to 8 months just to get caught up to the story because they haven't been brought into it. And so there is such a value in being in community. Like, if you're a dude, you need your boys. Like, it's a non-negotiable. If you're a girl, you need your girls, because whenever you get frustrated, whenever you get mad, you need an escape. You need somewhere else to go that can protect your heart. That's probably how. Like, how do you protect your heart? You get a good group of godly friends around you so that whenever your relationship's rocky, you got somewhere to turn to. That's not that person. Because what's going to happen is that the enemy's whole goal in this is to snuff you out and defeat you. His whole goal is to make you isolated. And if he can get you along with one person and then he can get you away from that person, he's got you beat. But if you can stay connected to community, man, that's where the power is.
That's good. I hope this has been helpful for y'all. Has it been? Know that we want to keep the conversation going, and obviously kind of just ask for you to, one, know that the church is a safe place to ask questions that may be just confusing. Like, it's okay. I want you just to, one, feel the freedom in that. We especially here want to be a place that deals with both hard topics, but also isn't afraid to have hard conversations with you and challenge you and push you towards the purity, because we really, 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 really do believe, I believe it with all of my heart, that God's way is the best way. Like, it truly is the best way. And if you find yourself and you're here tonight and you are not doing it God's way, I would simply tell you, you already know, if you were honest, that what you're doing is not working. It's not giving you the fulfillment that you hoped and that you desire. And so I would just encourage you, repent from what you're doing and go to God's way. He is not going to come with you with a lecture, and he's not going to come to you mad and angry. He's going to be like the father who's been waiting for this moment, for you to come back home and for you to be able to do it his way. I would also tell you this: if you're at a place right now and maybe you're at the beginning of a relationship and you're trying to kind of figure things out, I would encourage you, honesty and directness is going to be your friend as you're clearly state expectations. Do not feel bad holding the standard that God has already held for you. It's a gift. It's a gift that he wants to give you. If you're here tonight and you are single and you have no prospects, you are not a problem. There is nothing wrong with you. And I want you to make sure you understand something. Some of the greatest believers in all of the world were single. And I need you to know, while we talk about marriage, and while that's certainly something in the book that is going to be headed towards, please know, if your story in the book of Song of Solomon stops in chapter 2, you are still worth everything in the eyes of the Lord. And God has a plan and a purpose for your life. And I promise you, being married doesn't have to be the thing that is the fulfillment of you being able to reach all that God has for you. But you instead run hard after Jesus. And I do believe he may give you the desires of your heart. That's what the scriptures say. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not lean on your own understandings. In all your ways acknowledge him. He will direct your path. And it may be that path is something that comes one day to be, but do not lower that standard one bit in order just to achieve that goal. Because I can assure you of this, instead, God desires for you just to run hard after him and for you to be his servant and his vessel that he can bless and that he can use. Can I pray for you? Let me pray for you as we close. Father, I just come before you and I just pray your blessing upon every single person that's in the room tonight. God, I thank you for them. I thank you for the vision that you have for their lives, for the plan and the purpose that you have for them. I pray your blessing upon them. God, for the relationships that are in this room, I pray, God, your blessing on those relationships. I pray that they would be walking not only in purity, but God, they would be walking in righteousness. God, that you would lead them towards a way where they can fight well, where they can walk with you together, where they can learn more about you together, where they can learn more about their their own hearts and what you want to reveal in that and how you want to help shape them and mold them into who you want them to be. Father, I pray for the married couples that may be in the room tonight. Father, I pray that they would continue to pursue each other with passion. That God, they would realize that marriage is not sort of the destination. Marriage is the starting point. That God, they can begin this process where they would begin just to see their lives lived out as a reflection of the relationship between Christ and the church. I pray, God, for the person that's single here tonight. I pray, God, that you would bless them. I pray that their identity would be firmly and deeply rooted in a Lord who is great and who has great plans for them. I pray, God, that you would give them the desires of their heart. I pray that you would allow them, Lord, to run hard after you, to work on their form, and to be able to find themselves at a place where they would not compromise. Lord, give them conviction and give them boldness. But Lord, I also pray that you would give them blessing. Lord, we thank you so much for this conversation. We pray, God, as we walk through this Song of Solomon series, that you would just speak to us very, very clearly. I pray, God, as the young adults continues with this, the sword of the Spirit conversation, Lord, that they're having about Ephesians 6, that, Lord, we would all armor up, that we realize that we have an enemy who is actively against us and who wants nothing more than for us just to be like everybody else in the culture who just screws this up. But instead, God, you want to give us life, and you want to give us life abundantly. So, Lord, may we seek you, and may we find you, and we seek you with all of our hearts. It's in the name of Jesus that I pray. Amen.